Ali always wanted to speak English confidently, but he felt nervous whenever he tried. Whenever someone spoke to him in English, he worried that he would make mistakes or forget the right words. Because of this fear, he often stayed quiet even when he knew what he wanted to say. Deep inside, however, he dreamed of speaking English fluently and expressing his thoughts without hesitation. One day, he decided that if he wanted to improve, he had to stop waiting and start taking action. His first step was to learn 5 new words every day. At the beginning, it seemed like a small goal, but Ali understood that small efforts repeated daily could create big results over time. He bought a notebook and wrote down 5 new words each morning. Next to each word, he wrote its meaning and a sentence to help him remember it. During the day, he tried to use those words whenever possible. Sometimes he used them while talking to friends, and other times he practiced them in front of a mirror. Soon, his vocabulary started growing, and he felt more confident understanding English books, videos, and conversations. The second step was learning grammar. Instead of memorizing long and complicated rules, Ali practiced simple sentences daily. He focused on understanding how sentences were formed and how different tenses were used. Every evening, he wrote a few sentences about his day. At first, the sentences were short and basic, but with practice they became longer and more detailed. Little by little, he became more comfortable with English. He no longer felt confused whenever he saw grammar structures because he had learned them through practice rather than memorization. After a few weeks, Ali realized that learning words and grammar alone was not enough. He needed to improve his listening skills as well. To do this, he started watching English videos online. In the beginning, he could only understand a few words from each video. The speakers talked too quickly, and many expressions were unfamiliar to him. However, he did not give up. He watched the same videos several times and turned on subtitles when necessary. Gradually, his ears became familiar with the sounds and rhythm of English. What once sounded like a stream of confusing words slowly became understandable sentences. Encouraged by his progress, Ali began listening to English podcasts during his free time. He listened while traveling, exercising, and even while doing household chores. This habit exposed him to different accents and speaking styles. Sometimes he paused the audio and repeated what he heard. This exercise helped him improve both his listening and pronunciation. He noticed that certain words were easier to recognize because he had already learned them in his vocabulary notebook. Speaking remained his biggest challenge. Although he knew many words and understood more English than before, he still felt nervous when speaking. To overcome this fear, Ali decided to practice every day. He started by talking to himself in English for a few minutes each morning. He described his plans for the day, his thoughts, and even the things around him. At first, he made many mistakes and often struggled to find the right words. However, he reminded himself that mistakes were a natural part of learning. The more he practiced, the more comfortable he became. A few months later, Ali joined an online language exchange group. There, he met people from different countries who were also learning English. During conversations, he sometimes made grammatical errors or pronounced words incorrectly. Instead of laughing at him, the other learners encouraged him and shared useful tips. These friendly interactions helped him realize that communication was more important than perfection. He learned that even native speakers make mistakes sometimes, and there was no reason to be ashamed of his own errors. Reading became another important part of Ali's learning journey. He started with short stories and simple articles written for English learners. Whenever he encountered a new word, he wrote it down in his notebook. Reading helped him understand how vocabulary and grammar worked together in real situations. Over time, he moved on to longer books and more advanced materials. Every page he read increased his confidence and expanded his knowledge. Writing also played a significant role in his improvement. Ali kept a daily journal where he recorded his experiences, goals, and reflections in English. Some entries were only a few sentences long, while others filled several pages. By writing regularly, he learned how to organize his thoughts and express ideas clearly. He often reviewed his old journal entries and noticed how much he had improved. Seeing this progress motivated him to continue working hard. There were times when Ali felt discouraged. Some days, he forgot words he had learned or struggled to understand difficult conversations. Occasionally, he compared himself to fluent speakers and felt that his progress was too slow. However, whenever these negative thoughts appeared, he reminded himself of how far he had come. He remembered the days when even basic English conversations seemed impossible. Compared to that version of himself, he had made tremendous progress. 1 year after beginning his journey, Ali experienced a moment that made him proud. During a community event, he met several visitors from different countries. They spoke English as a common language. Instead of avoiding conversation, Ali introduced himself confidently and joined their discussions. He shared his opinions, asked questions, and understood most of what they said. Although he still made a few mistakes, he communicated successfully. For the first time, he felt truly comfortable speaking English. That evening, Ali reflected on his journey. He realized that becoming confident in English had not happened overnight. It was the result of small daily habits, consistent effort, and a willingness to learn from mistakes. Learning 5 new words a day had expanded his vocabulary. Practicing simple grammar had improved his sentence structure. Listening, reading, writing, and speaking every day had strengthened all his language skills. Most importantly, he had learned to believe in himself. Ali's story shows that mastering a language is not about being perfect from the beginning. It is about taking small steps every day and staying committed to improvement. Progress may seem slow at times, but every new word learned, every sentence practiced, and every conversation attempted brings a learner closer to success. With patience, dedication, and confidence, even the most difficult goals can become reality. Ali started as a nervous learner who was afraid to speak, but through determination and consistent practice, he transformed into a confident English speaker who could communicate with people from around the world. After building a strong foundation, Ali knew he needed more practice. He understood that learning vocabulary and grammar was important, but real improvement would come only through consistent use of the language. Determined to continue his journey, he created a daily study routine that would help him strengthen his English skills. He wanted English to become a natural part of his everyday life, rather than just another subject to study. With this goal in mind, he began searching for new ways to practice and improve. One of the first things he did was start reading short English stories. At the beginning, this task was more difficult than he expected. Many words were unfamiliar, and some sentences seemed confusing. Instead of becoming frustrated, Ali chose to be patient. Whenever he found a word he did not know, he looked up its meaning and wrote it in his notebook. He also highlighted useful phrases that native speakers often used. As he continued reading, he noticed that many words appeared repeatedly. This repetition helped him remember them naturally. Over time, reading became easier and more enjoyable. The stories introduced him to new vocabulary, different writing styles, and interesting ideas. Reading also improved his understanding of sentence structure and grammar without requiring him to memorize complicated rules. Along with reading, Ali began listening to English podcasts. At first, understanding spoken English was a challenge. The speakers often talked quickly, and their pronunciation sounded very different from the English he had learned from books. During the first few days, he understood only a few words from each episode. However, he reminded himself that improvement takes time. He listened carefully and replayed difficult sections whenever necessary. Some days he listened to the same podcast episode several times until he could understand most of it. Little by little, his listening skills improved. He started recognizing familiar words and expressions. As weeks passed, he understood more complete sentences and ideas. This progress motivated him to continue listening every day. Ali discovered that podcasts were useful because they exposed him to natural conversations and real-life English. He listened to educational programs, interviews, storytelling podcasts, and discussions on different topics. Each type of content helped him learn new vocabulary and improve his comprehension. Listening regularly also helped him become familiar with different accents and speaking styles. Soon, he noticed that understanding English movies and videos became easier as well. His ears had become trained to recognize sounds and patterns that once seemed impossible to understand. Every week, his comprehension improved, and he felt proud of his progress. Despite these improvements, Ali knew that listening and reading alone would not make him a confident speaker. He needed to actively use the language. Therefore, he challenged himself to speak English every day. At first, this challenge felt uncomfortable. He worried about making mistakes and sounding foolish. However, he remembered that every successful language learner had faced the same fear. Instead of focusing on perfection, he decided to focus on communication. He began by speaking English for a few minutes every morning. He talked about his plans for the day, described his surroundings, and expressed his thoughts aloud. Although nobody was listening, this simple exercise helped him become more comfortable speaking English. Another method Ali used was practicing in front of a mirror. Standing in front of the mirror allowed him to observe his facial expressions and mouth movements while speaking. At first, he felt awkward talking to himself, but he soon realized how effective the practice was. He pretended to introduce himself, answer interview questions, and discuss different topics. Sometimes he imagined that he was speaking to a large audience. This activity improved his fluency and reduced his fear of speaking. Every day, he became a little more confident than before. Ali also started talking to friends who were interested in learning English. Together, they agreed to have short conversations in English whenever possible. Their conversations were simple at first. They talked about school, hobbies, food, sports, and daily activities. Whenever they forgot a word, they helped each other find the correct expression. These conversations created a supportive learning environment where everyone felt comfortable making mistakes. As their confidence grew, their discussions became longer and more complex. Speaking with friends gave Ali valuable real-life practice and helped him apply what he had learned from books and podcasts. One of Ali's most effective learning techniques was recording his voice. Using his phone, he recorded himself speaking about different topics for several minutes each day. Afterward, he listened to the recordings carefully. At first, hearing his own voice made him uncomfortable. He noticed pronunciation mistakes, pauses, and grammatical errors that he had not realized while speaking. Instead of feeling discouraged, he viewed these mistakes as opportunities to improve. By listening to his recordings regularly, he identified areas that needed more practice. Over time, he noticed significant improvements in his pronunciation, fluency, and confidence. The recordings became a valuable record of his progress. Although Ali practiced diligently, he still made mistakes. Sometimes he used the wrong tense, mispronounced words, or struggled to express his ideas clearly. In the past, such mistakes would have embarrassed him and caused him to stop speaking. Now, however, he had developed a different mindset. He understood that mistakes were an essential part of the learning process. Every error taught him something new and helped him improve. Instead of fearing mistakes, he welcomed them as signs that he was challenging himself and growing. This positive attitude made a tremendous difference in his learning journey. As the months passed, Ali's confidence continued to increase. He found himself participating more actively in conversations and understanding English more easily. Tasks that once seemed difficult became much more manageable. Reading stories no longer felt intimidating, podcasts became enjoyable rather than confusing, and speaking English felt more natural. Friends and family members noticed the change as well. They were impressed by his ability to communicate and express his ideas in English. Their encouragement motivated him to continue practicing and setting new goals. Eventually, Ali realized that consistent practice had transformed his abilities. The small daily habits he had developed were producing remarkable results. Reading expanded his vocabulary, listening improved his comprehension, speaking increased his fluency, and recording his voice strengthened his pronunciation. Most importantly, these activities helped him overcome his fear of using English. He no longer worried constantly about making mistakes. Instead, he focused on sharing ideas, learning from experience, and enjoying the process. Looking back, Ali understood that progress did not come from studying intensely for a few days. It came from practicing a little every day and refusing to give up when challenges appeared. His journey taught him that language learning is a gradual process that requires patience, persistence, and courage. Through regular reading, listening, speaking, and self-evaluation, he had developed skills that once seemed beyond his reach. Each day of practice brought him one step closer to his goal, proving that determination and consistency can turn even the most difficult challenges into achievable successes. The final step was reviewing his mistakes. By this stage of his journey, Ali had already built a strong vocabulary, improved his grammar, practiced listening, and developed confidence in speaking. However, he understood that learning a language was not only about gaining new knowledge, but also about correcting weaknesses. He knew that mistakes were valuable because they showed him exactly what he needed to improve. Instead of feeling embarrassed when someone corrected him, he decided to use every correction as an opportunity to become a better English speaker. Whenever a teacher, friend, or language partner pointed out an error, Ali carefully listened and tried to understand why it was wrong. He carried a small notebook with him and wrote down each mistake along with the correct form. Sometimes the errors involved grammar, while other times they involved pronunciation, vocabulary, or sentence structure. At first, the list seemed long, but Ali viewed it as a collection of lessons rather than failures. Every evening, he reviewed the notebook and practiced the corrected forms several times. This simple habit gradually strengthened his understanding of English and prevented him from repeating the same errors. One common mistake Ali made involved verb tenses. Sometimes he used the present tense when talking about the past or forgot to use the correct form of a verb. Whenever someone corrected him, he wrote the sentence in his notebook and then created several new examples using the same grammar pattern. This extra practice helped him remember the rule more effectively than simply reading it from a textbook. Over time, he became much more accurate when speaking and writing. Another area where Ali focused on improvement was pronunciation. Certain English sounds were difficult for him because they did not exist in his native language. Sometimes people had trouble understanding him because he pronounced words incorrectly. Rather than becoming discouraged, he listened carefully to native speakers and repeated difficult words until he could pronounce them correctly. He also used online dictionaries that provided audio examples. Whenever he discovered a pronunciation error, he added it to his notebook and practiced it daily. After several weeks, his pronunciation became clearer and more natural. Ali also paid close attention to vocabulary mistakes. Occasionally, he used words in the wrong context or confused similar expressions. When this happened, he wrote down the correct usage and created example sentences to help himself remember. By seeing words used in real situations, he developed a deeper understanding of their meanings. This habit allowed him to communicate more precisely and avoid misunderstandings. The more he reviewed his mistakes, the stronger his vocabulary became. Writing continued to play an important role in Ali's improvement. He regularly wrote journal entries, short essays, and practiced paragraphs in English. After completing each piece of writing, he carefully reviewed it to identify mistakes. Sometimes he asked teachers or friends to check his work and provide feedback. Instead of simply correcting the errors and moving on, he analyzed each correction to understand what had gone wrong. This process helped him recognize patterns in his mistakes and avoid making them again. As a result, his writing became more accurate and organized over time. Reviewing mistakes also improved Ali's confidence. In the past, he feared making errors because he thought they would make him look foolish. Now, he viewed mistakes as a natural part of learning. Every correction represented a chance to improve and move closer to his goal. This change in mindset reduced his anxiety and encouraged him to participate more actively in conversations. He no longer remained silent because of fear. Instead, he spoke confidently, knowing that every conversation was an opportunity to learn something new. Months passed, and Ali continued following his daily routine. He reviewed his mistakes, practiced corrections, and remained committed to improving. Although progress was gradual, he could clearly see the difference between his current abilities and his skills when he first started learning English. The tasks that once seemed difficult had become much easier. Reading English books no longer required constant dictionary use. Listening to podcasts and videos felt natural. Speaking English with others became an enjoyable experience rather than a stressful challenge. One day, Ali noticed a significant milestone. While watching an English movie, he realized that he could understand most of the dialogue without subtitles. In the past, he would have struggled to follow even simple conversations. Now, he could understand the story, recognize jokes, and follow discussions with ease. This achievement filled him with pride and reminded him how much he had improved through consistent effort. Another moment of success occurred when Ali participated in a group discussion conducted entirely in English. Previously, he would have been nervous and reluctant to contribute. This time, however, he shared his opinions confidently and responded to questions without hesitation. He was able to express his ideas clearly and communicate effectively with others. Even when he made small mistakes, he quickly corrected himself and continued speaking. The confidence he had developed through practice allowed him to focus on communication rather than perfection. As his abilities improved, friends and family members began noticing the change. They admired his dedication and were impressed by his progress. Some even asked him for advice on learning English. Ali shared the methods that had helped him succeed, emphasizing the importance of consistency, practice, and learning from mistakes. He explained that language learning was not about talent or intelligence, but about persistence and daily effort. Looking back on his journey, Ali realized that every step had been important. Learning vocabulary had expanded his knowledge. Practicing grammar had improved his accuracy. Reading and listening had strengthened his comprehension. Speaking had built his confidence. Reviewing mistakes had helped him refine his skills and avoid repeating errors. Each habit contributed to his overall growth and brought him closer to fluency. After several months, Ali noticed a remarkable transformation. He could understand conversations more easily, express his thoughts clearly, and communicate with confidence in a variety of situations. He no longer felt intimidated when speaking English. Instead, he enjoyed using the language to connect with people, share ideas, and explore new opportunities. The fear that once held him back had been replaced by confidence and determination. Most importantly, Ali learned an important lesson about language learning and personal growth. He realized that success does not come from being perfect. No learner becomes fluent overnight, and everyone makes mistakes along the way. True improvement comes from taking small steps every day, staying committed to learning, and refusing to give up when challenges arise. Every new word learned, every conversation practiced, and every mistake corrected contributes to progress. Ali's journey taught him that patience and persistence are more valuable than perfection. By focusing on steady improvement rather than immediate results, he achieved a goal that once seemed impossible. His story serves as a reminder that anyone can improve their English with dedication, consistency, and the courage to keep learning. Through hard work and a positive attitude, Ali transformed himself from a nervous beginner into a confident English speaker, proving that small daily efforts can lead to extraordinary success.